All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I got my new merch on here, by the way. Anybody wants a shirt, $20. All right, so thanks for coming on, Mr. Darren Bailey. He is running for Illinois governor, and he is a former Illinois representative or senator. I can't remember.
Both.
Oh, both.
Started as a representative and served a term as a Senate, and then I ran for governor in 22.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. As I said before, you're campaigning. You're very high profile in Illinois, so I know that you're very busy. And again, this is not CNN or anything spectacular. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on Let's Talk Lake County and talk to us. Thank you.
I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity. So
absolutely. Okay, so like you mentioned something briefly before we went live here. Like what got you involved in politics in the first place?
So, Cindy and we've always been involved with the youth. We've always been involved in our community, making a difference. We served as youth directors and Sunday school teachers in our local church. In 1994, when a vacancy opened up in our local school board, I was asked to fill that vacancy. I spent the next 17 years on our school board. Right after that, Cindy and I we felt the need for something different, and we opened a Full Armor Christian Academy. We've had that's been open for the last 10 years, just alternative private education. And then in 2017, like I said, I farm south of it, 30 miles south of Effingham. There's a little town called Louisville, spelled like Louisville, Kentucky. It's right on Route 45, so I know that intersects its way up through Lake County. So. Yep. That this is where I've been born and raised, and my state representative was supporting the 32% tax increase. We go back to 2017, and we hadn't had a budget for a while, and as it would go, state government solution to any problems is just more money. So in order to enact this new budget, we enacted a 32% tax increase, and just by happenstance, I saw that on the news. And then I did what every red-blooded American does. I started complaining on Facebook. And I'm telling you what, I literally had Facebook just to monitor my children to see what they were doing and saying. Yeah. And when I started sharing this, it blew up. I mean, I went from 300 friends on Facebook because all I was doing was watching my children's stuff to 2 weeks later having 3,000 friends. And the people around our area, no, we can't afford a tax increase. The men and women that work on my farm, just in 2017, life was too tough. I got noisy. People came to me and said, Darren, be our representative. I said, absolutely not. I tried to get my wife, Cindy, to do it, but there was just this calling. My children on the farm said, Dad, you need to do this. I think they were just trying to get me off of the farm so they could do their own. But we ran, and that's where it all started. And then from there on, I just began to see and understand the dysfunction of government. And I was going to term limit myself to 10 years in the state house, come home and tell my grandchildren someday, hey, I fought for you. There's my picture in this book over there. But when I saw just what was taking place and no one really standing up and to try to stop it, we all come home to our districts and say, I voted no on that button so much I wore it out. That wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be the difference. And by the grace of God, people began to stand with me as they understood COVID hit, and that was just the catalyst that when I tried to get people to stand across Illinois, our own party, nobody would. And so I just kind of took the mantle and I took off with it. And all I desire is just, kind of like this prayer of Jabez in First Chronicles, just this increase my territory. So if I've got more territory, that governor's platform is, it is the bully pulpit for Illinois. Sure. And I see a way more so today than 4 years ago that we can take this so I can begin to speak to the people and begin to turn this state around so business, families, and our children can stay here and thrive. So that's kind of from start to where I am now, just passionate about the dysfunction of this state and fixing it.
All right. Well, that's good. Thank you very much for sharing that. Let's jump right into agriculture. I know we're going to talk about several different topics today, but this is a hot button issue for myself and yourself and a lot of people because it's so essential and fundamental to life, to just being alive. Yeah. And you mentioned like a 32% tax increase. How did that affect farming in agriculture in Illinois?
Well, it affected the men and women that work for me because and it affects people, because ultimately, if people can't, every one of us listening and talking on this podcast, we know someone who's left the state of Illinois in the last several years, and the
Right.
reason they're leaving is because they can't afford to stay here, and there's better opportunity somewhere else. So,
Yeah.
so for the men and women that, for me personally, a 32% tax increase, the men and women working on the farm, I'm paying them good wages, and they're struggling. We're all struggling, and now more of a tax increase coming their way. So I have to make changes to accommodate them, because life's all about people. So it affects everything, and that was the tip of the iceberg. And we've seen what's happened under the last 7 years of J.B. Pritzker, and just where property taxes have gone, where energy prices are gone. Everyone is struggling. So that the answer. That's why our nation would. That's why this republic was founded, was over taxation. And
Yeah.
we, the people, have got to stand up and push back and do something about it. And the answer to our problems is not more money. It's not higher taxes. It's simply reprioritization of what we got, because we
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Yeah, December 16th was the Boston Tea Party. It was, about taxation without representation in the tea
Right.
tax. By the way, that's my birthday.
Hey, that's a wonderful.
I love that I have the
that.
birthday of the Boston Tea Party. It's fun.
I will remember that one. My wife Cindy's birthday's on July 4th, so she's
Oh, that's cool. There you go.
And mine, of course, is March 17th, so St. Patrick's Day. So the Boston Tea Party, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I always, when I found out I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's just kind of exciting. It's kind of
Yes,
cool.
it is. Have you ever been out in Boston and throwing the tea over the ship into the?
No, I've driven through Boston.
You need to do that sometime. They've got little boxes you can throw over that have a rope attached to them, and it's a really on board the ship. Just
really? I never knew that.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah,
that's very cool. That's very cool. All right. Taxes in Illinois are extremely high, especially property taxes. That is well known. You're right. People are exodusing, leaving the state because of it. Nobody likes it, because the thing, I think that one of the main reasons why people don't like high taxes is because you don't see anything in return. It's supposed to be like, if it's supposed to be treated like a business, where the government is providing you with a service or a commodity, and you pay for it. Well, let's see it. Okay, where is it? And you just don't see these things in any sort of like relevant affecting your day-to-day lives. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I am one that I would prefer to the private sector to kind of pick up I want people in the communities to do with the things that we tend to think the government should be doing.
I love it. Right.
First of all, I think it's our responsibility to tend to your community, yourself, your family, your friends, your community. You kind of start and go outward with where your moral tendencies go. And I think at some point you go past a certain, a degree or type of person in the community, you sort of lose the personality of the group and the demeanor of the group. Community is extremely important. It's why I started this show, because I wanted people within Lake County to be informed about things, and I wanted to attach with people in Lake County, because community has always been very important to me. Family, friends, community, I love it. What on your platform positions do you think tends to that sort of ideology?
Oh, well, so about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we released a website. It's called blueprintforillinois.com. Blueprintforillinois.com. Take a look at that. And if anybody out there says, hey, Darren, what's your plan? Or the people listening, what's Darren's plan? Send them to that page. It walks our plan down. But on the very bottom, the beautiful part of this is we call it a waste tracker, basically a money tracker. And so we also rolled out at the same time Doge for Illinois. This looks a lot different than the federal Doge. We don't plan on stripping down and firing people. What we plan on doing is simply looking into that budget and finding waste, because to your point, we are conditioned here in Illinois to think and suggest, well, if we're going to fix a problem, it's got to take more money. And if it's going to take more money, we must raise taxes. So what taxes are you going to raise, Darren? No, not at all. Back to our initial conversation in 2017, when I got frustrated at the tax increase, Illinois budget was $32 billion. Today it's $56 billion.
Oh,
I sat for 4 years at the State House and just watched every time when JB addressed an issue, the only answer was more money, more money, more money. And
that's a very
today,
democratic
yeah,
position.
absolutely. It is. And it's destroying us. And it's
Yeah.
creating a dependency where instead of government protecting people, government provides.
Right.
And that's the doorway to socialism, which JB is going to be running for president on if he can showcase Illinois here in 2 more years.
Yeah.
But so I watched this continue to just bloom with, as you said, zero results. More money at mental health, more money at schools, more money at the transit, whatever, and nothing ever got fixed. So in 2021, as a state senator, I and a few state representatives, we wanted to draft a resolution to call for a forensic audit of our budget. 5,000 pages, all paragraphs, some decades old language. And Frank Montino, the Auditor General, called us immediately. I mean, if I want to create a bill, we've got our department. I call them and say, hey, I want to ban green paint. Well, they start drafting it. No questions asked. They draft it, send it to me, and we work back and forth till I have a bill. And that's really we were shocked when the Auditor General calls and says, hey, you can't do that. It's going to cost about $10 million, and it's probably going to take 10 years to tell us where our money's coming from and where it's going. So literally, we started, we spoke on that point, but we're unable to move anything. So this Doge program, day one, that's what, my lieutenant governor, that's what I'm going to task him with. He's going to start tearing this down. The people of Illinois need to know where their money's coming from and where their money's going. You remember when gambling was made legal, that's a great solution to all of our schools. No more tax increases for schools. That didn't work. Several years ago, they legalized marijuana, and that's going to take care of all of our mental health. Yet J.B. Pritzker has sunken billions more throwing at it mental health without any results. So First, we get real with our budget. We bust that open. I'm telling you, the money is there to start tampering down on property taxes, to start tampering down on pushing back on these high utility costs and $2.5 billion. Let's just think about that. $2.5 billion in 2025 was spent to give people who are here illegally free health care, free housing, and free food. $2.5 billion. Somebody told me the other day, we toss around that word billion anymore, and it doesn't mean anything to us. 1 million seconds or 11 days.
Yes, right. I've heard that.
1 billion seconds are 37 years. This is crazy.
That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? I remember when I first heard that a couple of years ago. I checked the math and everything. I'm like, that works. I'm like, that's nuts. And a trillion is like 33,000 years or something, just so you know.
Yeah. Right, so no, we just toss this money around like it's nothing. And I truly believe, I mean, there's $500,000 for the last 6 years since Lincoln University in Lincoln, Illinois has been closed. That's still sitting there. It's stuff like this that J.B. Pritzker, because the possibilities for governor in Illinois far exceed any other governor in any other state. The governor with his executive order, with the ability to reach in and move money around at will, a lot of freedom there. And unfortunately, under a tyrant like J.B. Pritzker, it gets abused to the point that we suffer. So, I truly believe that our Doge tracker, this made news within 24 hours after releasing Blueprint for Illinois in this search engine. Someone out there discovered that in the last 3 years, over $180 million had made its way through grants, remodeling grants, directly to J.B. Pritzker's holdings, his Hyatt holdings. So, Hyatt hotels are a franchise, but J.B. Pritzker owns some. And up in Chicago, $180 million had funneled. And now, I haven't read it all yet, but just earlier this morning, there was another release of some more money that was tracked back. State taxpayer money in the form of grants going directly to JB's blind trust holdings that it's not going anywhere else. But so there's tons of waste. So we discover that, we open that up, and I thoroughly believe, I know we're going to be able to start tampering down. We're going to start paying off, our pension debt. We're going to be able to work. We have a program that we're going to be able to work with local schools so they'll stop raising their levies to the max and put caps on property tax. So anyway, I know I made a big circle there, but
no, that was all very informative. I didn't hear about this.
And I'm telling you, that's why as I go out and you tell people, why are you the best candidate, for governor? I mean, well, I'm the only one that's run a statewide race. So I ran 4 years ago and I made mistakes. I did. And I think I've cleaned those up, and we're doing a pretty good job pushing forward with our messaging. But not only that, I'm the only one that's worked from the ground up. Aaron Del Mar, the same thing, precinct committee people, the township trustee. We work from the ground up instead of just coming in here out of nowhere and saying top down approach. That's not working very well for us. So I've seen how waste and how our government's misfunction in Springfield is hurting us, and I know where to address that at. So
oh no, that's great. Yeah, no, like you mentioned top down, like authority or power and that kind of thing. That's almost never a good idea. Bottom up is always about. That's how nature grows things from a little.
Hey, there you go. I love it.
Massive forest and so on and so on. Let's use God's creation as a model of how to actually create a good society.
I love that.
Okay, so that's again the horticulturist in me.
Yeah,
but that's very cool. All right, so you also mentioned utilities. Let's talk about energy and utilities, because they're obnoxiously high too. And I don't know that I can speak to this very well, but can you speak to like the data centers at all?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This whole thing's a mess. So I was in the House when the Green New Deal, the Clean Energy Jobs Act. I love the way they word all this stuff passed, and that was the bill that put the moratoriums on coal, started closing down our reliable energy, coal-fired energy plants. That's the one. It put a moratorium on anything. It flat stopped natural gas. I mean, in Southern Illinois, we have massive reserves of coal and natural gas. It put a moratorium on nuclear. And it basically said from here on out, and it actually had a date of 2050, that by 2050, it's going to be all solar and all wind, period. Right. And all this other stuff will begin to work its way out. Well, recently, back in November, when they were in veto session, they made some changes, and they opened the moratorium up on nuclear. It really didn't do anything with natural gas or coal, but you've got. So as I travel the state, especially down here in the Ameren region, literally have seniors on fixed incomes who fear when they get their utility bill, because back in August, utility bills in Ameren district doubled. And ComEd, I know, has spiked. It's going to spike more. And for those of us who are on rural electric like I am, in March, we're going to see a spike. So basically what happens, J.B. Pritzker and others, they sit down and they barter for what we think our electrical needs are. And they messed up. So we had to go back, and we ran out. We had to go back in and buy more. 2019, when I started my first term as a state rep, Illinois was a net exporter of energy. We sold energy. We had all that we needed. And now we have to turn around. We're producing it, but J.B. Pritzker has allowed us to sell too much, and so that's why our prices spiked. So now we have this interesting problem of already not having enough energy. We're producing it. Right. There have been some coal plants shut down. I want to make sure you understand something. Illinois says that our coal in Southern Illinois has too high of sulfur. Okay, so they don't like it going into the air. Right. So they charge a carbon tax on it. Right. They mine the coal, put it on a train, send it to Wyoming. Just wrap your mind around it. So Wyoming burns our coal, and if you truly believe in this, you have these massive scrubbers. So like when you're up at Springfield, down in Springfield, Illinois, and you see the coal plant there, and you see this steam coming out. It's not smoke. It's not pollution. That's a scrubber that collects all the junk in it. And that's literally steam that's coming out. A lot of people don't understand that. Right. So, and then Wyoming mines their coal, sends it to us, and that's what we're allowed, to burn. So it's created a very inefficient process. So then we introduce, so we're already short on energy. And now, 5 years ago when I first really learned about AI, I thought this was something that's, 20 years out. I had no idea that AI would be here in the form, because every time you get on Google and you do something AI, that's sucking energy up, and it's sucking a lot of it up. And that's the purpose of these data centers, is to collect that information and push. That's where your AI is coming from. So these data centers are using an immense amount of energy. And then not only that, a lot of people, every time you see these cell phone towers and utility towers, and you'll see a little building and you'll see an air conditioner on that building, well, that's to keep the computers in there cool. And because of these massive size of these AI buildings, that's part of why they're taking so much energy. But then also, they're usually connected to a water reservoir. Right. And they bring this water in like your car, like your radiator, to cool the system down. And then when that water goes back out, it warms everything up, which is going to change a lot. So there's a lot of dynamics in place that, we haven't been told, that we're just, for the sake of technology, for the sake of, wearing the world on our belt or in our pocket, we just assume this is the way it has to be. Right. And when people take a look at these data centers, well, it looks awesome because that's going to bring in more tax revenue to the district, and everyone likes that. But then when we take a look at the environmental issues, right, we've got to kind of back up a little bit and say, what's the deal there? Now, unfortunately, we have become so reliable on these, the world in our hand, that what do we do about it? So we have got to have a serious conversation. And I believe, and that's something, I think that's why I'm here, David, is because I started educating the people in my area about this tax increase. And then COVID, I stood up and started educating people. I was the guy when the 32% tax increase came around, I'm sitting, and both of the guys on both sides of me are going to support this. And I get up and walk outside the dome, and I do a Facebook Live, and I say, guys, we got a bunch of Republicans that are going to vote for for double your gas tax. You need to call them right now, and just educating people. And that's what I'll do as governor on all of this, on the data centers. And, there's these mini nuclear reactors that are amazing. These little 3-foot boxes are getting ready to start making in Houston, Texas. And one of those boxes will produce the same amount of energy as 1,000 acres of solar panels will. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff coming out. This technology is being used in Australia and England. So anyway, that's data centers, energy. It's a mess, but the General Assembly could meet, and as they are now, they could have met back in August and September and October and given relief to the people of Illinois. But J.B. Pritzker doesn't want to give people of Illinois relief. He wants to just pound us into a socialistic republic where we're dependent on government, and he will showcase that when he's running for president. That's the dilemma that we face. But the good thing of it is, he's did this for 3 years now, since 2022, and now 80% of all Illinoisans are frustrated because of affordability, they're frustrated because of safety, and they're frustrated because of education. So we've got something to work with. There is an avenue to push this guy out the door on November 3rd of this year.
November 3rd, Tuesday, first Tuesday in November. Remember that date. Do you have to go through the primary first, or are you the only?
Nope. The primary is March 17. So
right. Your birthday.
Yep. It's coming up. Please get out there and vote early. Right now, we get in. We can start fixing and working on different, voter ID, paper ballots. I don't know, but right now, March 17, the weather could be volatile. It could be snowing, sleeting, raining. People don't show up on November 8th of 2022. I mean, that was a tough day. We had traveled, worked our tails off. We really thought Illinois was ready for change, and when AP called. And they called the race at 2 minutes before 7, before polls closed, and they said J.B. Pritzker's got it. We called them up and said, guys, I don't know what you're doing, but you got something wrong, because there's more momentum than that. And they said, no, we've been monitoring several precincts for the last 100 years, and you've only got a 40% turnout only. And we know that J.B. Pritzker's got the bottom third packed because of all the return to the mail-in ballots that we monitored that came back. They said there is no way with a 40%. And we knew that. We were telling people beforehand, get out and vote. If we can get there's 8 million people who are old enough to vote in Illinois. Only 70% of them are registered. So when you hear a 43%, that's not 43% of everybody. That's 43% of the 70%. So that's like 30% of eligible voters making our decisions. Our problem in Illinois is apathy. My vote doesn't count. It's rigged. Chicago. I'm not voting. I'll show them. That's what's getting us. If we get a high turnout, if we at least, at the bare minimum, match what happened in 2024, there's a strong pathway to victory. But we have to show up and vote.
Yeah, it's so crucial and it's essential. Like, and if you don't vote, if you don't provide your voice, your thoughts on politics and on civil matters and so on, I wouldn't say you don't have the right to be angry at anything, but things are going to happen that you could have changed.
Yeah, you're right.
Is that a
being a horticulturist and a farmer? When people complain about farming, and there's this disillusion that I work for a paycheck from the government. That is not at all what happens with farming. There's farming 12,000 acres. I'm one of the top tier farmers, and I do that because I've got 2 sons working with me, and we're supporting 20 families, but over the years you accumulate, when you have, does that 2012 was a complete blowout. That's the purpose of the farm program. The purpose of the farm program is to create a safety net so that farmers can keep on farming and we don't have to sell all of our farms. And so foreign entities don't come in here, because it is tough. We wait on God to provide the rain and the weather, and we have to be dependent on government, on exports and imports to set our prices. So I do want to, there's a lot of people that think that, you're a welfare farmer. No, that is not. They make up right now today. I'd love to sit down with somebody and show them my budget for next year, because anticipating an amazing crop at 4 1/4 corn and at $10 beans, we're losing some pretty serious money, and we can do nothing about that unless something changes. And that's why I believe that President Trump, I do believe in his tariffs, because short-term pain for a long-term gain. I totally believe that. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, because you said something about, if you don't vote, don't complain. Many people will complain about, farming and farmers. I said, well, just don't complain with your mouth full is all I ask. So
that's a good point. Yeah, there's a lack of gratitude in this country, isn't there?
And understand.
People, like, they want to go. Yeah, no, sure.
Just get educated is all I ask. And then if you still got a problem, that's all right. But just at least understand what you're arguing about.
Right. Oh, interesting. No, that's a very good point. Okay, you brought. I wasn't gonna bring this up, but you mentioned it, and this isn't an attempt at pointing any fingers or calling Mr. Trump out on anything. But so you think the tariffs are a positive thing?
I do.
Okay.
So again, we'll just, since you brought Trump up, let's talk about all of it. So when I'm in Chicago and the news media puts the mics in my face, obviously right now the first thing is, well, what would you be doing differently as governor and to get these federal agents ICE out of our streets? And my answer to that is, if I were governor and had been elected in 2022, there would be no federal agents. There should be no federal agents working in our streets, because J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, local and state authorities, should be taking care of the issues that we're having. We have laws.
100% agree.
These laws are not being upheld. J.B. Pritzker is creating a massive amount of divisiveness by not doing this and putting the blame on Trump. So that's number one. Number two, the tariffs. Trump's a business person. So that's the next thing. Well, how are the tariffs affecting you on the farm?
Right.
Well, I tell you what, I was losing as much. The economy was just as rough the last 4 years, and nobody was speaking or doing anything about it. President Trump shows up. This is a ploy. It's a gamble. It's a mechanism of government to wake everybody up. And I believe by the end of the first quarter of this year and into the second quarter, I think we're going to see results of these tariffs. I really do. If we don't, then they've got to be sooner than later, because
that's true.
November will be a bloodbath for Republicans if our economy is still a stalemate. There is no doubt about that. But I just being a business person, I see it, and yes, things. Yes, you can obviously point at some items and say, gosh, that's higher and it shouldn't be. Absolutely. That's how tariffs work. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I truly believe that the results will be positive, and they will be sooner than later.
Well, I hope you're right, because it definitely looks kind of bleak right now. A lot of people are not liking the whole tariff. And I get, when he first started talking about tariffs, I was like, I didn't know much about him. I do know that, from listening to people speak about it over the years that like they're infrequently used, but are used positively sometimes, right?
Right.
And but then like he's putting like on our allies, and they're starting these tariff wars and trade wars and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, this is getting way out of hand.
Right.
And then people were at home where it's like my business is being affected. I can't employ as many people because I have to pay some so on and so.
Right.
So
Right.
I do remember thinking, I'm like, well, if his expectation of tariffs is going to work, that's a good idea to bring business back into the United States by kind of like making it too expensive to do it
Right.
elsewhere. Sure. No, I don't know anybody who doesn't want more jobs and a better economy in
Right.
the United States for the United
Right.
States.
Yeah.
Well,
But on the agricultural front, the crazy thing is we are literally importing uh, millions of tons of beef, of pork, of things that we could be producing. Because if we're producing them here in our nation, then we're feeding them. That's where a lot of my corn and soybeans goes to. It actually goes to animal feed. The rest of it goes to biodiesel and ethanol, but most of it goes to animal feed for food. And so the little country of Paraguay, we import 4 million tons of beef from that country. Now, I get it. That's the purpose of the United States of America, to kind of help out there, but not when we're suffering. Nobody's addressing this stuff. And by the way, they import all that grain. Well, they're not, or they export that beef to us. They're not buying our corn and soybeans to feed. They're getting it from, South America. So there are a lot of imbalances that need to be dealt with, and there are some corrections. And I think that's what, President Trump has addressed. And like I said, we'll just have to cross our fingers and see what the outcome is.
Right at this point, it's already in motion. So it's going to happen.
Right.
We'll see.
That's right.
It looks like Paul Durr said hello, Darren and David. Paul, are you still watching? Hey, Paul.
Hey, you got Paul. Paul is awesome. So
Paul is great. Paul
is an example of a hardworking man. He's an electrician. Yes. Since I've known him, he's been able to expand his business. He's working his tail off. He's right over in the Metro East, and he's got to be thinking, what is my business doing here versus jumping across the border into St. Louis? So God bless you, Paul.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I found him. I did a radio show, and I interviewed him over something. I don't even remember what this is, years ago, and we've been Facebook friends ever since. No, I love Paul. Paul's great. Okay, very cool. So you know him personally? Like, do you just know of him, or do you know him personally?
No. I know him personally. So I just talked with him last week. So it's pretty awesome. My wife usually is with me as I get to know people. I meet them for a few times, and Cindy can remember the names, and it takes a little while for me to remember and Cindy. But no, Paul is I consider Paul a friend, a good friend.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, he's a great guy. Very cool. Okay. So we talked about utilities and tariffs and agriculture. We talked a bit about federal agents and so on and so forth. Okay, I wanted to ask you about like the trading with other countries and stuff like that. Why do you think that even started? Like why? How is it that some people didn't understand that growing and producing things here is a better idea? Like when was it like maybe it's better if we ship it across the country and then ship it back, right? Or across the world and ship it back. Right. Like that doesn't even make any sense.
The backroom deals. There's just this, and I'm not going to speak on authority on that because I don't understand it. But it's the same way. I show up in politics. It's why does a good conservative person go to government, and the next thing you know, several years later, they totally forgot about what they campaigned on. You've got so many people tugging and pulling at you, asking for favors, and oh well, if you work with us, we'll help you on the backside, because ultimately it seems like everyone that runs for office, the number one thing that they're really concerned about is getting reelected, because here in Illinois, it's a part-time job. It's an easy job. And especially if you're a Republican, you're in the super minority. So all you got to do is complain about Democrats all the time. And the Democrats the same way. They're in the super majority and they just keep kind of cramming things through. We have got to develop an environment where we work together and understand each other. But as to your point, these when we talked about the Russian money that was finding its way back to the Biden family, I don't know, I don't understand that, but at the end of the deal, it's favoritism deals, getting on a plane and traveling to a foreign country and being wined and dined and just cutting a deal, and all in the name of helping them out, and it eventually gets out of control, and that's where we're at today.
I understand. That. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I should do some research into it too. There's
Oh, it's
a
deep.
lot
I
more
don't know that
details.
there's it's like opening the budget up. That's it. We're going to get on that, and we're going to get on it fast. I mean, there's no 100-day into the Bailey administration. You're going to see results within the first 10 days, but I'm telling you, I know that's going to be a chore. So looking at a federal situation and asking how this all happened, that is one dot with Paraguay with the beef. That's just one little bitty
Oh
issue.
yeah, yeah, no, for
And
sure.
looking at every country in the world and asking why do we do that? Again, just like our budget, years of just misunderstanding, misuse, things that got done didn't have sunsets on them, didn't end, and they just continued to grow. And just accountability, transparency.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like that. A couple other things I wanted to ask you about. Do you know that like Illinois has some sort of like fund or grant fund for Israel? Is that right?
Well, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
No, I'm
And
not
I'm
aware.
not trying to pick on it at all. I guess the thing is like, and you hear like governors of states coming out, for or against what's going on in Israel and Gaza and that kind of thing, which is fine. I don't know if they have a personal opinion on it. But what a lot of people don't understand is like, what do states have to do with international affairs?
Hmm.
Does that make
That's
sense?
yes, yeah, yeah. So again, I'm glad you brought that up because I was not aware of that, and I'm going to look into that. It does not surprise me because as JB Pritzker loads up and he takes trips to Japan and China and elsewhere and trying to bartering for sales of our grains. I mean, that's a federal issue. You don't have a lot of role other than going over there and creating some friendships with people that might help you get elected with president someday down the road. So
Right.
no, I'm sorry, I can't speak with authority on that.
Okay.
But when people in Illinois are suffering as they are, I'm
Right.
an America First, I'm an Illinois First candidate, and that's what so frustrates me about this 2.5 billion that's been used to house, insure, and feed people who here are illegally, when our veterans, when our senior citizens, when our just everyday working families are struggling. This nonsense. $1.5 billion pulled from this road fund, this gas tax, all in the name of throwing to Chicago to bail out their mass transit.
The porch tax.
Yeah. So let's talk about how did we get here and what needs to be changed. And
Okay.
we don't have that conversation. We just throw more money and so what for the rest of Illinois that needs better roads and infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I did a show actually. I had Russ Clark, who is the treasurer of the Illinois Libertarian Party. My social political economic philosophy is very libertarian.
Yeah, I understand. I've learned a lot of that. I've learned a lot of that and to appreciate a lot of that from Paul. So he's
yes, yeah. He still thinks Paul thinks I'm not libertarian enough, but I'm like, okay. But okay. He calls me a leftist, and I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's okay. Well,
like I said, I put a post like saying I'm a libertarian. He's like, you're not a libertarian. I'm like, yes, okay.
Paul.
I love
believes in accountability, so he says it like it is.
So. But no, Russ Clark. So I had him on this show a few months ago to talk about the porch tax. Because it was just such astonishingly stupid that literally Chicago's taxes would not have risen at all to pay for Chicago's problem. Everybody else in the state was going to have to pay for Chicago's problem. Tell me how that makes any sense either. There's so much just complexity built into these systems of allocation of funds and stuff like that. Local is the key to everything.
Right. It is. Okay. And I have stood and debated many times on the House floor and on the Senate floor. And when representatives and senators from Chicago and high populated areas would push what I felt like was a ridiculous idea. I mean, let's be honest, it started with the Safety Act. And they're pushing this agenda that we don't need to be charging people for bail. This system's messed up, and they were sharing these stories of what was taking place in the high populated areas of Cook and surrounding counties. And I would stand up. I say, okay, here's the deal. Y'all know who I am. I'm Mr. Conservative, and I think this is all nonsense we're talking about. But if you're telling me that your community needs that, you're the representative. Okay, I'll support that, but leave the rest of us alone. Because Southern Illinois, all these other small counties, we're going to be hurt by that. So you want to stop paying bail? That's going to hurt our our courthouse set up, and guess what's going to happen? Property taxes are going to go up. Guess what happened? Property taxes went up much faster and more than we thought. But no, it's a one size fits all because I can, and what's good for me, it's got to be good for you, and we got to treat everybody fairly. And that's how a lot of this nonsense happens. There is never ever an issue that gets dealt with directly. If somebody messed up, or if some unit of government messed up, then everybody is treated the same and gets penalized. But the person and the group that messed up never get held accountable. That will change after January of 27.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's one of the built-in problems of like pretty much any given socialist economic system or political system, is that it assumes everybody is the same. Yeah. In every possible way, which is obviously just from, opening your eyes and going to the grocery store, you can tell that's not the case.
Right.
Capitalism is a much more allows for more organic growth and diversity. Diversity is good. That's one of the things I don't like about like socialism, and is they want to say it's pro diversity and it's not.
Right. Nope, that's exactly right. Agree.
But
history, they're refusing to teach history in our schools. People are being taught that the Holocaust didn't happen, that parts of the Civil War weren't real, and so they're just not teaching it. And when you forget your history, then you forget where you're going, and that's why that's what makes this all so dangerous, because we've seen socialist economies develop, and then it's people like J.B. Pritzker that are able to create this, powerful people, and then after a time, then some military leader gets upset, comes in, and all of a sudden we have communism, and it's just a vicious circle. We were warned about this 250 years ago, and God bless everyone out there that's listening. God bless the men and women that served our nation and our armed forces, because you ultimately serve to protect our freedoms. All we have to do, our duty, is to vote to uphold those freedoms, and we are failing that duty, thus losing our freedoms.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, cool. I want to ask you about one more thing, because I know you have something to attend to after this. So I just want to ask you about one more thing, which I thought was fantastic, by the way. And I don't know where you stand on this now, but like, letting Chicago become its own state. I think that's a great idea. No, seriously, some people, some people have that same reaction when they hear that, like, that's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. I've been to like so many different states in this country. Almost all of them have this issue with like the biggest city like runs the rest of the state. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a while, and Portland's not even that big of a city. It's like 900,000 people or something. But the rest of the state was all red. The rest of Oregon is red.
I know.
But Portland's politics governed it all because of the density of the population in the area. That's how.
Right. Yes, and thank you for asking that, because I have learned a lot. So in 2019, show up, first term as state rep, literally there in Springfield, the first week of business. So Cindy was with me. We're headed home, and my phone starts lighting up, and people say, "Darren, somebody just introduced a bill to separate from Chicago." So I tracked it down. I found the gentleman that it was House Resolution 101, and what it was a resolution to inform Washington, D.C. about the discrepancies of Chicago and the rest of the state. That's in and of itself, it wasn't a separation bill. So then out of that, because I had been so noisy getting elected, and then after that, I was so noisy, that began picking up steam. So I realized that, oh gosh, I better do some research on this. So I began to collect interviews on this, and as I began to understand, my answers to my interview kind of frustrated some of the other sponsors of the bill, because I said, listen, so yes, a state General Assembly can come together and say, we want to split our state. And if they do that, then it has to go to Congress in DC, and they have to approve it as well. So that can be done. So, but I said my purpose in doing this was kind of like let's imagine a marriage, and the marriage is going south, and one of the partners wants to try to salvage the marriage. So I'm raising my hand up saying, hey, hello, we're having problems here in the rest of the state. Can we get some attention and help Chicago? Does anybody want to have a conversation? That was my point in signing on to the resolution. So then I began to dig deeper and just really try to understand, okay, what would it look like if we did? Because Illinois has the one separation, Colorado has 6, California's got 12, New York's got 3. Everyone wants to. Texas has got like 10. Everyone all these separations. Listen, Here's what I discovered. There is nothing, in my opinion, from what I discovered, more unhealthy, more dangerous. Let's just say every state had one split. We'd have 50 states, we'd have 50 city states. Electoral college is out the door. Life for a moment would feel good in the red areas, but let's be honest, the economic engines sometimes are in those cities. Chicago is a great city. We have that's why 6 months ago I was not going to run for governor of the state of Illinois. We were fine. Life was good on the farm, kids and the grandkids there, and we had an amazing year. And I just thought I'm okay. And then I began to look at some of the other candidates who were running in the governor primary and the Republican primary. I just said they're good guys, but there's no strong leadership. So, and not only that, but we've got experience of what I learned. And then not only that, but J.B. Pritzker has decimated us over the last 3 years. And guess what? Chicago's feeling it. Yeah. If we can, it's affordability, it's safety, and it's education. I'm going to throw all this other noise out I'm a strong Second Amendment person. Yeah. Throw it all out. It's got to wait. It has to wait. We have to focus on what's pushing families out the door and what is inhibiting business to coming back. Our corporate tax is twice of what Indiana's and Iowa's is. Why is there any business in here when they can be moving? So I did. We had some really smart people come to the table and said, Darren, you got to focus on these 80-20 issues. And I said, you're right, we do. And so we began to put a team, together. My lieutenant governor is Aaron Del Mar. He's Cook County GOP chair. He's Palatine Township chair. Palatine Township is the only township in Cook County that has operated for the last 10 years with a budget in the black. They're doing some amazing things. So we have an opportunity of a lifetime for a Republican, because let's be honest, when let's look what happened with Bruce Rauner. We were all amazed in 2014. Hey, we got a conservative in office. No. He went to war against Mike Madigan and the unions and built these walls, and it was over, game over. Wow. So the world looks at Republicans and say, that's what Republicans stand for. No, we've got answers. We've got solutions. Let's stop watering the message down. We've got the opportunity of a lifetime to get elected. And if we get elected, then guess what we've got to do? We've got to start working with Democrats, because we are going to be at least in the minority, if still not in the super minority. And then we've got to build trust. And that's one thing that I offer, because the 4 years that I spent in Springfield, many of the Democrats that I worked with, they'll admit that, I don't think I agree with anything that Darren stands for, but I respect him because he treated me with respect. When he stood up, he didn't demean me. He would talk about the issue. And I was, walking down the halls, I was just, wanting to engage in conversation and learn. So we've got this brief moment that if we can get people to show up and vote, we can win. And then when we start business on January 21st, 2027, that door has got to be open. There will be seats around that table, and we have got to start coming up with solutions. And I truly believe when we focus and fix this affordability crisis, this safety crisis, and this education crisis in Illinois, we're going to understand, because the shockwaves alone and winning this fall, the shockwaves alone are going to bring Democrats to the table. Because if and when that happens, that's people who life's costing too much. They don't feel safe, and they don't like the education their children are receiving. So I'll use this platform, like I talked about earlier, as governor, to say, hey, we're wanting to make some change, but guess what? Representative A, B, and C, and senators, A, B, and C, they're not coming to the table. So people up in your districts, you need to give your senator and your representatives a call, because here's some solutions to make life more affordable for you. But no, they're not showing up. That's how we're going to operate. And that's why I think they'll come to the table. And then it's up to us to be able to understand, listen, and work together to create change. And I think that has got to happen. Otherwise, the Republican Party in Illinois, the conservative movement, it's gone. It's over with, because if we can't do that. And if JB wins another 4 years, he's off running for president, and God help us in Illinois.
All right. No, that's well said. And, you're right. It's a tangibility issue that people feel the effects of government policies and stuff like that. When they feel like they can afford more, or at least, like not be so strapped, when they feel like their kids are getting an education, when they see it as though I feel safer in my community now.
Yeah.
That's when people I think, start to react more positively towards government in general. Does
That's
that make
right.
sense?
Yes, it does. 1,600 vacancies in the Chicago Police Department. Many of our counties and municipalities have vacancies because with the Safety Act, with the Trust Act, a lot of men and women serving to protect and to serve. Yes, a lot of them walked away, and we're not getting the fill rate that we need. And the people our friends in Chicago now, our friends in Kankakee, in Peoria, they know that somebody can be walking down the street, squirt lighter fluid on you, light you on fire, and they'll be back on the street, because that's exactly what happened a month ago on the CTA trains. When a young woman was put on fire, the next day the perpetrator, who had been in and out of the system over 72 times,
Isn't that crazy?
was let go. Only until a week later, when he tried to put Chicago City Hall on fire, was he actually arrested finally and detained.
Oh,
and that's
geez.
only because the news source blew it out of proportion, or blew it up like it should have been, not out of proportion. So.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. Do you have just maybe another couple seconds to talk about the Safety Act?
Sure.
Okay, look, yeah, because I don't know enough about it to speak positively or negatively. I will give you a quick anecdote. A friend of mine here in Lake County is a Lake County judge, and she had a case in front of her with a guy who, on his property, he had put a dead body of a woman's dead body in this garbage can or something, and a month later it was discovered. Something about the Safety Act, she had to let him go.
Yeah. So
I'm like, how is it not a crime?
Yeah.
To have a dead body on your property knowingly? Go ahead. Sorry.
No. So that's the core point of the Safety Act. If you can't prove that you're a threat to someone in particular, then you can't be detained. I mean, that is that root. So, and that was the people in the representatives in Chicago that initially brought this, that was their problem, because they're saying our jails are full because everybody that comes in is getting detained, and this whole discrepancy thing, and they can't afford to post bail, and many times, hey, they're not a threat to anybody, just let them out, put an ankle bracelet on them, and everything's going to be fine. That was the original premise of the Safety Act, and there's some things in there that we can work on, and deal with.
So it's not the whole thing needs to go.
No. The whole thing's got to be repealed. We have got to start fresh. We have got to give hope to the men and women who serve and protect. We have got to give hope to the people that get this thing out, and then let's come to the table and work on whatever the issues may be. But no, that judge is exactly right. That's how sickening it is. I was asked earlier this week to attend a visitation by a family that over in Momence, Illinois, 30-year-old woman starting a business. It was a bar, and at 11 o'clock in the morning last week, a guy stopped by and demanded at gunpoint all of her money. He told her to sit in a chair. She thought he was leaving. It's on camera. He shot her execution style. Then he shot her again, and then fled over into Indiana. These are just examples. This man had a history as well in the courts, and this is nonsense, and it's got to stop. Story after story. I'm tired of this stuff. It's just nonsense. I'm going to tell you something. After my family's loss, there was a lot changed with me, because I would, every Monday, I still do it, I get on and I do some research. I'm like, well, how many shootings and deaths were there in Chicago this week? And I mean, for the last 2 years, I did a Facebook Live on Monday mornings, and I'm like, wow, there's been 14 shootings and 3 deaths. The Labor Day weekend, 50 shootings and 14 deaths. They're statistics. That's how immune. It's kind of like that million and billion number we talked about. These lives have become statistics. These are people's sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and moms and dads. This is some families, just life has been wrecked.
Yeah.
And this young lady in Momence, they were planning a marriage. She had a fiance and up in June, and just everything's, and it's needless. And J.B. Pritzker refuses to do anything about it. And that's the most disgusting part of it, that he a few months ago, he said, yeah, there probably needs to be changes. Well, the General Assembly can meet right now today. They could have met back in November and before and started tampering down and putting freeze rates on our utility costs. They can create some mechanisms to stop these local units of government from raising our property taxes so high. They can do some kind of a change to protect people by implementing change in the Safety Act. But no, that's too far gone. The Safety Act must be repealed, and we'll start over.
Okay, well, that's great. Interesting. I appreciate that. All right. Any last thing you'd like to plug or anything?
Well, look me up, Lake County. We've after the primary, we believe we've got strong numbers. We're going to win. We will be up in that northern corner at probably most of our time. We're kind of hitting some of the southern areas to kind of say, hey, we're going to be gone for a while, and we have got such a grassroots movement. The people, it's kind of like family. It's kind of like, hey, when are you coming back down here? And guys, we've got 80-90% support in your county. We'll be back down, but we've got a lot of work to do. We're going to go ward by ward by ward in the city of Chicago and just meet with people and just let them know that something can be different. So we're doing a go to baileyforillinois.com, look our calendar up if you want to volunteer. We can't keep signs. We get signs and they just disappear. But we've got more coming. We'll be up there soon. Go to baileyforillinois.com, check our calendar out, come to one of our events, and then go to blueprintforillinois.com and take a look at that. You'll see my plan, and then go down and have some fun and start doing some searching of your own, and you can see where a lot of this waste, fraud, and corruption's at in our budget.
Oh, sounds good. That all sounds good. Are there any plans, at least after the primaries, to debate Mr. Pritzker?
Oh, there will be debates, yes. So I'm glad you mentioned that. We are having a primary victory party on March 17th. It'll be in Springfield. Not for sure that'll be advertised later, but March 17th, as I said, is my birthday, so we're going to have come and celebrate my birthday and a victory. The day after, March 18th, we're going to have a Republican unity breakfast, because the number one thing we must do is unite the party so that we march in step, so that everybody doesn't get frustrated because their candidate lost and go home. We've got to work together. And then yes, there will be, because there must be, debates with J.B. Pritzker and calling him out on these fallacies and these lies that he continually tells.
Man, that would be intense. Okay, well, I look forward to that for sure. So, okay, good. All right, Darren Bailey, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Again, I know you're busy, very busy.
No, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Okay, great, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You gave some credibility to your show when you said
I exactly.
Paul Durr was watching, so that's all I needed to hear. So you're good.
I appreciate it. And maybe after the primaries, you can come back on.
Well, I'd love to. I'd love talking freedom with good groups like yourself. So, and I look forward to meeting you when we're up in Lake County. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. Let me know. Lisa has my email address, so please, that'd be great. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Wedge. Till next time, keep talking. Darren, hold on 1 second if you don't mind.
All right.